Hey guys, Seth here with a Shot in the Dark reviews. Today we have a light I've been waiting on for a while. This is HaikeLite Part 2. The headlamp need is now filled with the PL47 from the previous video, and so we needed a light that could reach out and touch something. But we couldn't afford to spend, $224 with code for an R90C, but did a bunch of research on a multitude of different light companies, and HaikeLite, spec-wise, offers the best bang for the buck. Today we're going to have the HaikeLite MT07 Buffalo 2. This is version 2 with a max output of 8,000 lumens. This is up from the previous original version of 5,000 lumens. So we got a 3,000 lumen bump on the Cree XHP 70.2 LED. Also, we got a smooth reflector on it versus the orange peel on the previous one. So actually, before I unbox this, I ordered this from Banggood, and so I will say I have to hand it to Banggood as far as what you get for the price. Couldn't find this light anywhere cheaper. Ordered it on March 15th. Got it today, or excuse me, I apologize, March 10th. Got it today, and today is the 25th. So it took 15 days to get here, which isn't horrible. I'm not super impressed with the packaging because it was this cardboard box wrapped in a single piece of thin foam and then stuck in a bag and sent off. And this is how I received it. I was very happy that the light worked. I was very happy that the light showed up at all, because that's a problem. So, Banggood, I understand to be able to offer the prices that you offer, you have to cut corners where you can. But if your stuff shows up and they aren't fortunate enough to work, then the return process is not easy, and again, you're dealing with shipping back and forth to China, so that can get expensive, and it can also, just the time to wait is just unrealistic in that kind of a scenario for a $60 light. So that is what I paid for this. I paid $60, and that's without batteries. I have put batteries in it and run it through the UI, so I got familiar with it beforehand. But we're going to break this down. And so, again, box is not in amazing condition, but the light arrived. It does work. This is exactly how it was packaged when I received it. They give you this UI spec sheet, and you can freeze the video if you'd like, pause it, and check out the spec sheet on that for the UI. These are the specifications for it, and you notice the bump here to 8,000 lumens, up from that original 5,000, which is now the high mode. So they went from high, and I'm assuming, I haven't tore it down or anything, I'm assuming that they just bumped the driver. And I don't think this is anything new outside of just making that driver push that 70.2 a little harder. This is going to be the cool white version at 6500K. Another reason I think that they're able to push and get anywhere close to those numbers. I mean, I don't trust spec numbers as far as I can throw them, but I will say one thing. Not a lot of companies include the CRI unless it was specifically purchased for its CRI, a color rendering index. So, you get 95 plus out there. It's going to say it in the specs, but very rarely does it give you a color rendering index for lights that aren't bought for that purpose. So I will say I like that one small thing about this spec sheet. But, you know, it gives you the information that you want to know. It says hidden turbo, but the way that they phrase a lot of the stuff in this is not amazing. Also, I found some errors in the UI. And I'll get to the UI, but I'm not loving the UI on this one. I'm really not. So it says here that when you are on double-click turbo, strobe, or SOS, a single click by switch 1, which is the on-off button, will go back to previous memorized mode, and that does not happen with this light. It actually turns the light off, and then you have to click it again to turn it on into the previous mode that it was in before. That's the exact same thing also with the M switch. It says fast click to enter Moonlight, single click to previous memorized mode. It does not go back to previous memorized mode. It just flicks off. So that is something of note. Gives you some info on the battery indicator. I do like how it has a step down and still allows you to use the flashlight. There are some higher output flashlights that when it drops below a certain percentage, it just doesn't function at all. This stepping down to Moonlight when it's below 9%, by the way, don't let your batteries get that low anyway, but when you get it down to 9%, it still allows you to use Moonlight, which, you know, if you're stuck in the middle of nowhere and for some ungodly reason this is your only light, it allows you to, you know, get home. So let's take a look at the light. In the box, you have these spare O-rings, and I will talk about these little plastic discs here as well that I'm not a fan of, and that's why they're in the bag. Also comes with this little lanyard. You know, it is what it is. It's, you know, a cheap lanyard, but I'm glad they included it. Some companies don't. I also do like the fact that it has a quick disconnect here. That's kind of cool. I mean, it's a cheap piece of plastic, but it's awesome if you want to swap in and out lanyards and you have that kind of piece on your lanyard. Okay, now to the light. Okay, and there it is. It is a much bigger light than I expected, although I was expecting a somewhat hefty light. And it is hefty. I mean, I haven't weighed it yet, but it's, I mean, you know, this has 4 18650s in it, and it is, you know, you definitely feel the weight. This isn't going to be something that you're going to throw in a day pack or something unless you have a real specific need for it. This is exactly how I received it, so, I mean, again, it's a $60 light, so I'm pointing out flaws that I don't care about because we use our stuff. So, I mean, I buy used, as you guys know, as often as possible. Nicks, dings, whatever, I could care less about. But this is a brand new light, so for people who actually care about, you know, how their lights are received, there was a dink in the ano right there. And there's some snail trails on it. I mean, you know, you can tell that it's well machined. I can't argue that one bit. It is well machined. But the ano job, you know, you saw how the box came. So, but it works, and you know, I'm not gonna complain too much with something that works. So here is that Cree XHP70. .2. They went with the smooth reflector this time around. The last one was an orange peel. And again, I could care less, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it, but there is a small dent in the reflector. It's just a tiny little ding, and you know what? It's not even coming up on camera well enough for you guys to see it, but there it is, right there, where I'm flashing the light. There's a small ding in the reflector. So again, to me, I don't, who gives a damn, you know, but for people who are all about their lights being amazing, then there you go. Another small ding there. But I'll say they serialize their stuff, and I do like that. A lot of budget light companies do not serialize, and that's beginning to become more common practice, so that's really nice to see. This is a tripod mount, so this fits a standard tripod. I could unscrew what my phone is attached to and screw that right in, but make sure you have a hefty tripod. I mean, or at least have it set up well. You don't want this giant head going and slamming, you know, against the ground if it gets knocked over. So, but I can understand the need for it because this thing is designed to just throw light out as far as it can with as much light as possible, which is what we needed for the ranch and the shelter. So this is definitely the new shelter light. It is gonna stay this way until I can upgrade it. So as far as the UI goes, you don't see this a ton, but you have a dual side button. No rear switch, but a dual side button. You have an on button, and you have a mode button. So I'm going to kill this overhead. There we go. And this is absolutely not a beam shot video by any stretch. I'll do the beam shot video separately. But this is just to kind of show you the UI. So you click it on, and this is low. And if you'll notice, it gives you that blue battery indicator. Now, this does not go off. It is constant. You know, when you're in pitch black and you're trying to hold this up to your face and point it around and whatnot, this one can get distracting. I had a similar complaint on my FL33, and something that I really liked about the Sofrin SP33 was that it had a very efficient battery indicator in the button. This one does not have that. So, I mean, obviously you can cover it with your thumb, you can flip it upside down, but I mean, you know, you shouldn't have to is the point. So, this is low, and then once you've clicked it on, you'll then click the mode button that's lit up to cycle through the modes. These are unchangeable. They are what they are. The UI is flashed, unless you modded the light. You know, this is what you get. So this is low. This is medium 1. That's medium 2. That's high, so this is 5,000 lumens, and my camera's adjusting, but it's a ton of light. And then this is turbo. Excuse me, apologize. That's moonlight. I mean, it's a new light to me too, so I'm still getting used to the UI. So, but this is a good thing to touch on what I said earlier. So I'm supposed to be able to click one time when you're entering moonlight or turbo, and then click one more time when you're in that mode to return to the previous memorized mode. As you can tell, that did not happen. The light turned off. So, again, that's moonlight. This is supposed to be 2 lumens. I'd be surprised if this wasn't more like, I don't know, 5 to 10, but it's supposed to be 2 lumens. Runtime on this, in this mode, is a really, if it can pull it off, and I wouldn't be surprised with as many batteries as are in here, but it says here that it can run 45 days at this mode. And I mean, this is a good amount of light. If I were to turn off every light in here, why the hell not? Alexa, turn off the command center. There we go. So, this is every light in this room. And this provides plenty. And if you had a diffuser on top of this, you know, or even, because the head is big enough and the tail is big enough, I mean, if you stuck like a jug of water on top, you know, a smaller jug of water or a bottle of water to act as a diffuser, then, I mean, this thing going for 45 days straight, 24/7, with this much light output, okay, I like that particular feature. That's nice. If the runtime is anything close to the specs, that isn't bad. So, Alexa, turn on the command center. So, actually, I'm going to kill this one so we can keep going through this UI. All right, so that's the mode setup that you have. So I'm going to click again, which should go back to the previously memorized mode, but doesn't. And so we're going to turn it on again with the lower switch. That returns it back to the previously used mode. It does not memorize Moonlight. It does not memorize Turbo. So it was on high, which is 5,000 lumens. And so you click and it goes back to low. So that's what you get. You get low, medium, medium 2 according to them, high, and then turbo. 8,000 lumens. My camera's adjusting, but this is a ton of light. And I'm looking at this against a white wall, and it is, I mean, I'm seeing spots. This is a ton of light. You can feel it heating up a little bit right here, and I'm going to kill at least that mode. This is another good example. So I should be able to click that same button, the on button that I used to get into turbo, click it once to return the previously used mode. And it doesn't. It turns it off. And then you turn it on, returns to high, and then we're back down to low. So low on this is supposed to be 150 lumens, 450 in medium 1, 1500 in medium 2, as I mentioned, 5,000 lumens in high, and then double click for turbo, that's 8,000 right there. I don't know if I noticed a 3,000 lumen bump, but if they're coming anywhere close, it's going to do what we need it to do because our ranch isn't that big. So click that again, that's off. And then there are strobes on this. If you guys watch my channel, you know that I'm not a strobe guy. But if you want strobes, you press and hold the... Sorry. Oh, excuse me. My fault. I apologize. I would edit this out, but I don't have near enough subscribers to care. So I am going to get it back into turbo. And then from turbo is where you access the strobes. You press and hold the on button, again, that you used to get into turbo. And you go to strobe, beacon, SOS, and you just hold until you get to the strobe menu that you like, or the strobe mode that you like. So it gives you strobe, beacon, SOS, and then off. So, not a fan of the UI. Not a fan at all. And I really wanted to like this light, like, through and through. And I'm not saying it's a bad light. I mean, it does exactly what I needed to do, and for 60 bucks, it's a great light for the price. Don't get me wrong. But it didn't come packaged well. It didn't have a very, in my opinion, usable UI. But the runtime is great. I do like the fact that they incorporated 4 18650s in this, because I will say pushing that, that's about as hard as you can push, for the most part, a 70.2, and so I'm glad that they made it a 4 18650 setup to be able to give you any decent runtime. I wanted to point out, as far as craftsmanship goes, the battery tube is not removable from the head, like a lot of other even super budget lights. You know, Convoy S2, you'd love to be able to swap out heads and whatever. This was poorly glued in. So, and I mean, it just goes all around the whole light. It was just very poorly glued into the head. Which is, I mean, it's okay, except for something that we touched on at the beginning of the video. These little plastic things, little yeah, little cheap plastic discs. Let's open this sucker up. Let's do a pro before we do a con. I will say I love the double O-rings on this. It gives a very tight, very secure seal. Now, am I going to trust that this is glued well enough to provide any sort of underwater protection? I mean, I'm not going to test that because I actually need to use this light, but I would trust the tail cap a lot more than I'm going to trust where it's glued to the battery. As you guys know, I like greased threads. The threads on these are well greased. The O-rings are well greased. That is definitely a plus. They also made the end kind of idiot-proof. If you notice, one hole is actually smaller than the other hole. That lines up with the cap. So you put the large pin in the large hole. So you can't put this in backwards reverse polarity. That's, I guess, it's a good and a bad thing. I mean, don't be dumb with lights, you know? I mean, make sure you're putting the positive on the negative, or the positive where it needs to go and the negative where it needs to go. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't like that it spins. I don't know if I could tighten this screw down, but I want you guys to see this, how I got it out of the box. So it just kind of flops around, and that does make getting it back into the light more difficult than it should be. So that's what the board looks like. Now, if you notice, these little circles look awful familiar. That's where these came from. I already pulled these off even before I put batteries in this thing. I have no idea why they're there. I don't know why they wanted to incorporate it, but basically this button, or this flashlight is set up for button tops only. And the only reason that I can find that it would be running button tops only is because of, I'll click this back on so you guys can get a better look at this, is because of, I got nothing. I can't think of any good reason why they would want to run only button tops on this. So what they do is they put these little plastic discs, all right, and they glue them cheaply onto the board. I took a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, and carefully just popped each one off. The tail cap was fairly simple and straightforward. It was a little bit more of a job to do it in the battery tube without damaging the light. I don't have a lot of button top 18650s that I would use with this light, so I wanted to use flat top. You pop these little plastic discs off that serve no purpose, and then you can run button tops. So no worries if you only have flat. So we'll pull these out. And let's take a look inside. So, I'm going to be able to see this from the top. So, if you can look. There we go. That's a good shot. You see the same spot on the little discs in there. And they didn't even center glue it on that one. It's, and then you see the glue job on the edges there, where the board meets the tube, that green goop. So again, not impressed with the build quality there. So, I mean, again, this is just unwrapping it. It does work. The UI isn't what the paper says, but it does work, and I'm going to put it through its paces. Obviously, it will be used on a daily basis. And I want to say that initially, I do not have near as much faith in this light after receiving it versus when I got it. So, you know, I will say I'm disappointed. I don't have buyer's remorse necessarily, but you know, I'm not impressed with how they chose to put the light together. They go as far as to grease the the threads, which is really nice, but you know, you grease the threads, but you crappily glue everything else in between. And so you got to line this up just right, and you'll feel it when it goes in there. And, you know, the dings in the ano, and I mean, I'm being picky only because I was impatiently waiting for this light to show up, had real high hopes for it. Maybe I got my hopes up too high because I've never had a bad experience with a HaikeLite. So, you know, I don't know. Well, I don't like the UI, and there's nothing I can do about it outside of modding the light, and I don't want to do it. So, it is what it is. It's not the worst light I've ever had by a long shot, and I don't know if it's going to stand up to it being a daily use light. And if for some reason it does crap out, then I'll do a review at the time of what happened, and we'll see how long it lasts. Beam shot videos to come for this, the PL47 and the Rofis, excuse me, TC1. Though I would have had them up already, but it's been a hell of a week here at the shelter, so just yeah, lots of stuff. So is what it is. Otherwise, you guys, you'll have a fantastic evening. I hope you have good luck and prosperity in the future. And as always, stay bright.